Hello, and welcome to another episode of From Mrs. to Me. I'm your host, Chrissy Freeman, and I'm excited to introduce to you today my guest, Dr. Chonta. I want to make sure I say that right. Haynes. Dr. Chonta knows what it's like to have her world turned upside down by a devastating divorce, which left her heartbroken. During this time, her children had also grown up and moved up out, and she lost her job as a theology professor. She's here today to share her story and how her faith in God helped her to see there was a lesson and a purpose in all this messiness. Today, Shantae empowers women to confidently live life on their terms with peace and financial security. Whether transitioning through a devastating loss or moving intentionally toward fulfilling a dream, she helps women reframe their story, reinvent themselves, and reimagine their future. Like that's not enough. She's also a best-selling author, CEO, and founder of Heart to Heart Truth Ministries and Heart to Heart Truth Foundation, where her mission is to help you put feet to your faith so that you can walk victoriously. Wow, is all I have to say. So much incredible work that you are doing. Welcome, Shantae.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, Chrissy. I'm thrilled to be able to share with your audience today.
Well, we're so happy to have you here. And to start, could you share a bit about your own journey that led you down this path of really pursuing your purpose?
Yes. Well, I tell it this way. You told most of it, but I tell it this way that I was sitting in bed when the words "I want a divorce" cut me like a knife.
Mhm.
My heart, like I said, it started beating fast. I had this anger welling up on the inside of me. I could see the flames, okay? I was so anxious, I was nervous, and I had questions. Why? Why were we going through this? These questions never got answered, mind you, and they never will, but that's okay. I had to get to that point. I wondered whether it was somebody else, was it something that I did, the rejection, the hurt, the anger, all of that was real and the shame was real too. So
Yeah.
as 36 years walked out of that room, I was devastated. I know what it feels like to have loved and lost, to have your heart broken. And it wasn't quite the same as when our daughter passed away, my middle daughter passed away, but it was still a
Mhm.
void. And a lot of people don't recognize that divorce is also a grieving process that we go through.
Yes.
So I understand how women then can get stuck, looking back at the past, grieving the life that they expected, and then never moving forward. And though I was a leader in the church, the biblical money management expert, a theology professor, and I was sacrificing, life still happened. And I say it this way, that superwoman cape that I wore, I could wear it any longer. You know, you know, and I know there are many women probably raising their hands right now, like, yeah, I was wearing that cape, but you can't. I had
No.
to learn how to put it in the cleaners and leave it there because I hurt. So that was
Yes.
the beginning of it. But I realized that a lot of people, just like me, were hiding in the shadows, that they were heartbroken. They didn't know what to do, they didn't know what was next. And then when I coupled that with finding out that statistics show that 90% of women that go through divorce or widow, they end up in poverty, I decided that was not going to happen on my watch. So I needed to do something. I knew women that were abandoned, rejected, undervalued, uncovered. They were silenced. They did not really see their worth because of the treatment of others. And they needed to transform from wounded to confident. So I recognized for me, I couldn't control what somebody else thinks, and neither can you. But we can control how we feel and what we do with what we have. And so when I recognized that what I had left was more than what left me, and I understood the true value that I have in God, that spiritual foundation is the key to resilience. My motto, my heart may be broke, but my bank account doesn't have to be. And I realized that the crown that we wear, our thinking, is the true riches. And so that's why I'm fighting for women to transform, and like we say, to transition, to either bounce back and birth something new so that they can adjust their crowns and confidently live life on their terms with peace and financial security.
Wow. I mean, so many things that you shared that, I think are important to highlight. You know, one, which is really important, is, you talked about taking off that cape, right? We are everything for everyone. Whether it's your spouse, whether it's your children, whether it's your job, we or family, we always feel like we can just rescue everyone.
Mhm.
And in the process, we can lose ourselves.
Oh,
And
yes.
and what I love that you shared is that we have to allow ourselves to grieve too, and to feel it and to experience and move through it so that it doesn't stay stuck, and we don't, we're not holding on to that animosity or whatever those feelings are. And so can you walk us through just briefly sort of how you moved through those stages of grief to get to the other side?
Well, you talked about it in your intro. I say I help women reframe their story, then reinvent themselves, and then reimagine their future. Those are the steps. So, like, if I start with the reframing, I built a new house because I moved. We all have to move, and this
Right.
upheaval, right? But when you're building a house, you decide where the bedroom's going to be, where the bathroom's going to be, all of that. You get to do all that designing. But the biggest thing that we reframe is our mindset. That's why I said
Yes.
we start with, how do we think? Reframe the story. It's not about what somebody else thinks. It's about what you recognize your value to begin with. And I say it this way: if you know what you're bringing to the table, you don't let somebody else treat you like a napkin. When you recognize that God has designed you in such a way, He has gifted you in such a way, you are uniquely created in such a way, His opinion of you is really what counts. Because others can be dissuaded, they can be lied on, they can have this different view because of where they are, but it doesn't change who you are. So I say you look at the collateral beauty, not just the damage. What do I have left? And one of the things, even in this particular area, this reframing, sometimes it's hard for us as women because we're emotional creatures and we're in the middle of it. I had one lady, one of my clients, I was talking with her, and her countenance was so down when we got on the phone. And I said, well, what's good about what happened? Well, there's nothing good, was her response, because she had a child at home. And when we have others that we're taking care of, it makes a difference. She had to move. Yeah, circumstances did not look like it was all coming up roses, right?
Right.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm going, I said, okay, did he snore? And she said, yeah. I said, you don't have to hear that anymore. She goes, you're right. I said, was he complaining? She goes, oh, all the time. I said, you don't have to hear that anymore either. She goes, you're right. And I can paint the room whatever color I want. I can
Yes.
decorate however I want. That's what I mean by reframing your story. You start looking at what is the positive that's coming out of this. And yeah, sometimes it may be hard and it may take somebody on the outside looking in to ask you those questions. So that's that first step. And then you start saying, you know what? I wasn't all bad. I did everything that I could do. It really wasn't my fault, or we each had a part to play in it. And so when I look at, and I always tell the women, I said, look at your skill set, your talents, your strengths, focus on those things, build upon that. And so you turn your pain then into power and you move forward. You get that compensation because of the agitation, right? So
Yeah.
that's that big one. But you kind of hit on that, us sacrificing. That's when you get into that reinventing side. I recognize, I made scrambled eggs for everybody. And I realized I didn't like scrambled eggs. I was like Julia Roberts in Runaway Bride. Okay, whatever everybody else wants. I think
Yeah.
that's what we get to, and we have to stop that.
Totally agree. And, I love how you use those examples, of how, you can do what you want, meaning you can have the colors that you want. You can, because I think we do struggle sometimes with what are the positives. It's when I think a lot of people say, what do I have to be grateful for? What's they have a gratitude practice or something like that. That is a mindset shift. So when you say reframing,
Mhm.
that's what that's doing. Is it really is reframing that narrative, right, in the mind that talks to us on a regular basis and
Yes.
saying,
Gotta erase the tape. No,
no, no, this is not signing good. Let's rewind and let's start anew with
there you
all the positive, right? And one of the things that I think is beautiful that I've learned over the years is it's okay to surrender. It's
go.
okay to let go, right? That's that you talked about control. It's that letting go of control, because to your point, we do not have control over anyone else but ourselves. And the more we start to figure that out and let go and just surrender to what is, I mean, you talk about God, and yes, we are all unique and there is a plan for all of us. I firmly believe that. But we have to let go and surrender and quiet that mind and change our mindset in order to start to see all the beauty that's already there, right?
Exactly. There's just so much that's there, but I want to say this. It's okay to grieve
Mhm.
because, you can be just as, and I've been accused of being overly positive before. I said dessert first, right? Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
never know what's going to happen. But there's still that point in time where you sit back and you analyze, because my original degree is on the electrical engineering side. So I'm an analytical person. I analyze. I did a study on Proverbs 31 woman when this happened. I'm like, what did I do wrong? What part did I play? Because I want to make sure as much as lies within me, I can live peaceably with all men. I can forgive. I can let it go. And that takes time. We
Mm.
can't just gloss over it and say, oh, yeah, forget all about it. I had 36 years, 6 years before we got married, and our divorce was final 1 month shy of 30 years. That's a long time. That's most of my life,
Yeah.
and it's like, what do you do now? You got new friends. Everything changes, but that doesn't mean that has to be negative. It doesn't mean that you can't achieve, you can't succeed, you can't thrive. It doesn't mean that. And a lot of times, those are the things that we're saying to ourselves. Oh, my life is over. Oh, it's done. I'm devastated. I'm demoralized. Nobody else is going to want me. Or do I really want somebody else is another question. But,
Mhm.
you kind of got to go through all of this. But we have to then get to that. Let me reinvent who I am.
Yes, and you can do, and I thank you for saying that. It's one of the things that I said in my Facebook community this week was, there is this narrative
Mhm.
when we get divorced of, oh, I can't start over. I'm this age, or, who's ever going to want me, to your point, or I can't afford to have a house on my own and pay the bills, or, you know, we could tell ourselves all these stories all day long. And if we start to believe them, we are going to stay stuck.
Exactly.
And that's the challenge, is really, but to your point, we still have to grieve, and every day is going to be a little bit different in the beginning, right? And
Mhm.
I think that's also it, is don't beat yourself up, because it takes literally one step, one small step every day. That's it. It's
I
like,
say
break
one,
it down.
I say one heavy foot in front of the other every
I
day.
love that. I love that. It's so true. And so, we talk about the lessons, right? The lessons, all the challenges that we face, and I know you said this too, um, really are lessons. And so, can you share with the audience your hardships, your challenges that you faced? How did you find the lessons in that?
Okay, so I was starting a coaching program at the time, just afterwards, because I was like I said, that finance has always been with me, doing biblical finance and teaching theology for so many years. I was like, okay, finance is an issue. I'm gonna make sure it doesn't happen to me, number one, but I wanted to help others. I ended up with 3 different attorneys.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I nicknamed them. The first one was the piranha. She took all the money, and then some people are just out there for the money. And I
Hmm.
recognize that women going through divorce, like, yeah, we're afraid, we're ashamed. I had anxiety even picking up the phone to call an attorney. I didn't know what to ask, I didn't know what to do. And so we don't have that information because it's brand new territory. We don't know who to turn to. We don't know how many friends to still have in our circle. And I cut out everybody but 2 people. I'm like, I don't want to outweigh my welcome, but I need an accountability partner so that my witness is still going to stand. And I needed somebody who was still going to believe with me that this was not going to happen and not push me down the road to divorce, because it was like,
Mm,
no, you can't. You have to be on your own page. So
right.
all of those things were going on in my head. So I was like, okay, let me do this program for women who are going through this and let me help. Well, the second attorney I'm thinking was really, I look for female attorneys. I just knew they were going to have my best interest at heart. They would understand what I was going through. Well, that's not necessarily the case either. So the
Hmm.
second one, I thought she was going to be the one. I don't know if she was just having a bad day, a bad month, just poor people that were working for her or whatever. But that one put me on my butt. She was like, well, I can't work with you. You called the office and you didn't even ask if I was sick. And I'm like, I had no clue. Like, leave.
Wow.
So anyway, when she quit, I was like, Netflix. I'm just getting on, I'm just gonna binge watch something because my mind has to be off of this. I am so done. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot
Hmm.
of work that goes into it. That was a challenge. Well, I did get somewhat of an agreement out of that. That was not what I said. And we can talk about that too. You go into the office, and the men that are working as either paralegals or in the office, when they ask the question, well, why don't you leave the home? Is it because you don't have any other place to go? Who says that? I
Right.
mean, you're already devastating. You're like, hmm.
Yeah, that's really not the way I would approach it.
But that's what I got. And so you're not just dealing with your own internal feelings, you're dealing with what culture is thinking about you too.
Hmm.
And all of this is just on top of you. Well, my third attorney ended up being a male. I'm like, look, I just need to get the ball across the finish line. I've got the agreement. I changed it the way I needed to because, the analytical side of me comes out. I put in what I needed. I said, I just need to make sure the legalese is right. Can you finish this for me? And he did. And I was like, thank you. Just
Yeah. But you highlighted, yeah, it's not an easy process. But what I love that you highlighted is that you didn't settle for the first person you had. Meaning, we have to adjust and we have to go with our gut on what feels right because, not to your point, not everybody out there it has our best interests in mind.
You've got to be able to trust your attorney. They've got to be able to fight for you. If they don't, you need a different person. If you start getting into this back and forth and, they're unavailable, they're not listening to you, you've got to be able to change. So what I learned from that is not only I don't have to take that person, but I learned how other people felt. And I figured, hey, I had to get to the bottom of me just watching Netflix so that I would be able to relate to other women going through because
Mm,
typically I'm high level, I can compartmentalize and it'll be okay. I got a smile on my face and nobody knows. But I was hiding because I wasn't
mm,
sleeping at night. I got kids, my youngest was just getting ready to graduate from college. And it was like all of this stuff was happening all at the same time. Then I had the church, like, okay, you're a leader in the church. How can you be a leader? And this is happening to you. This is not supposed to happen. How do you still maintain? And so I had to learn that, yes, you have to hit whatever that bottom is. But a lot of times it's not just for you, it's so that you can help somebody else through on the other end.
Yes, yes. And that those are the lessons, right? Is that
Uh-huh.
we learn them for ourselves and then we pay it forward.
We pay it for.
And yes, and so we can be in service to others so that they don't have to experience the same things that we went through. And so that's what's great about the work that you are doing. And you highlighted that one of the things I want to go back to, which was about your friends and how you had to look at that and you sort of pared it down to a couple people. And I think that's really important because I think that when you go through divorce, it is an opportunity to change. It's an opportunity to look at sort of the landscape around you and say, what is serving me? What is in my best interest? What relationships are
Hmm.
aligned with where I want to go with my life? Because we all have those friends, right, who love to keep that negative card sort of going and, oh, this must be so bad, woe is me, blah blah blah.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
it's also an opportunity for us to look at that and say, how do we, if we want to shift our mindset, if we want to change our lives, then we also have to look at the connections that we have. And so I would love for you to share, how
Mhm.
did you navigate that? Because that's not easy to do, to make a big change like that and really figure out who those people were that you wanted to have in your life.
Yeah. Well, one of the big things that I've always said is I did not want to be bitter. I
Mm,
always tell the Lord, I'm not going to be a bitter person. So I'm going to be forgiving. But I also recognize that if I said something bad about my spouse, I could forgive. And because you shared it with someone else, they might still hold on to it.
mm,
I remember mentioning, hey, I'm going through this divorce or what have you. And I called my mom, and her response was, well, I really didn't like him anyway. And I can tell you all the reasons. I said, well, let me help you. I'm going to get off the phone now because I'm not going there.
good for you.
And so that's when I recognized, no, it can't be necessarily a family member. It can't also be a friend that's a ride or die, like, let's go cut him and let's just, you can't do that either. So you gotta pick very carefully. That's when I realized you need to have somebody to walk alongside you that has been there and knows, how to navigate it. But they're gonna listen to what the Lord is saying and not just go off. It can't be somebody that's gonna be strict and judgmental either. Because what do we all want? We want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be appreciated. So, yes, even if I was wrong in a situation, I need someone that's willing to say that to me so that I can change. Hey, your tone wasn't right. Hey, that email you're getting ready to send, you don't need to send it that way. Let's take a beat for a moment, sit back, you know, go drink some tea, and then come back to it and look at it from their point of view so that it doesn't blow up. Those are
Mm,
the people that you need. I say definitely you're going to have your legal counsel. You got to have them. Definitely, I would get a coach, but then you need one or two friends. And I'm saying two at least because, like I said, I didn't want to wear out my welcome. I didn't want to be crying. And I'm not the person that's just going to cry on their shoulders. I had somebody else, I mentioned two, but I had somebody else that was praying for me because I got to
mm,
a point where I couldn't pray for myself. I
yeah.
sat there and I said, I'm tired. This has gone on long enough. I can't do it. Can you please just intercede on my behalf? I can't do it right now. And they did.
Yeah.
So you've got to know, one, that you're not alone, but two, the right people to go to because you are a sum of those that you surround yourself with.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And what I found, thank you for sharing all that because, it's very difficult. And
Yes.
what I found was I had gotten into this habit when I was married of looking to another person for decisions that I was making in my life. And that actually bled over into my female relationships, friend relationships. And I found that I had these friends who I actually would go to and say, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. What should I do in this case?
Mm-hmm.
And, this, we can't do that. I really have learned that we have to go in. And going in is that getting quiet. It's that learning how to really access our own intuition
Mhm.
and what that looks like and take our guidance
Yeah.
from a higher power.
Yeah.
And I
You have to,
think,
self-awareness is what's important. Yeah.
yes, yes, totally. And so that's where I had to look at my friends and say, they've been playing a role that I definitely participated in. But now I'm at a point where I've got to pull up my big girl pants
Mm.
and I've got to start taking control of my own life. And I know what's best for me. I'm the captain of my ship, no one else is. Yeah. So, and you don't need a million people around you, you need the right people
You
around
do.
you.
And a lot of times when there's too many people, they say too many cooks spoil the soup. It becomes so confusing that you end up staying stuck too. You end up being paralyzed in that case. So you're not looking back, but you're like paralyzed because I don't know what to do. Everybody's got their own opinion. And this one tells me to do it this way. And this one tells me I shouldn't do that. And then you're just like, I don't know what to do. And you
Yeah.
stop again. So instead of doing that, pick appropriately. Get that mentor that you need or that coach. Get that person. Then get someone that you can share with and you can just be you and say, hey, I don't need you to respond back. I just need to be able to vent every now and then. And then as you go through the process, you will find that you get stronger and stronger. But now on the other side is when we start reinventing who we are because
Yeah.
you no longer have that ring on your finger. You're no longer, oh, I'm still mom, but I'm not wife.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, what do you do? Transition is difficult because we've gotten comfortable with one position, one station in life. Going to get a mammogram and you have to select who is your emergency contact.
Right?
That was an eye opener. Like, oh, who, who do I put down?
Yes. And you don't think about these things until you're like in the doctor's office and you
And the
look at
tears are
it.
starting to roll down your face.
Uh-huh.
I'm panicking.
Yes. And you have to select that divorced box. And
Yes.
it's like, okay, I'm divorced and you're asking me for who my emergency contact is now. I don't know.
Yes.
It's yeah. It's definitely eye-opening, but these are the things you don't think about. But
And you do
yeah.
the same thing when you go through grief. My mom passed at the beginning of this year, and I had to do the same thing. It's like, okay, she's not my emergency contact anymore.
Mm,
Who do I call? What do I put? So you're doing all these things, and grief comes in waves for some people. Some
yeah.
people, it's a download. I'm wiped out for months, and then I come back to life. But
Right.
for me, mine was waves. So I'll be fine, and then it'll be like, I got to transition again. It's like, okay, so I got a moment. And so it's just a little calm, like, okay, it's a little wave, it's happening. But we have to learn to live moment by moment in
Yes.
the
And
midst
and we go through so many life transitions, right? Divorce is one of many, unfortunately, or fortunately, because I do think with everyone, again, we learn the lessons.
of
There are beautiful gifts that show up for us
it.
and
Mhm.
we're able to transform. It's just really hard in the moment. You do need to grieve.
Yes.
And, one of the things that I really wanted to ask you that I think is important because you lost your job and you had all these other things happen. I talk about it a lot on this podcast, which is the financial overwhelm. So oh, I want to do something else maybe with my life. I want to do a pivot and maybe look at a different career, pursue my
Mhm.
passion, my purpose. But then that financial mindset comes into play, and it's the scarcity mindset,
Yep.
and you're afraid to make a move. So, how did you overcome that financial insecurity, scarcity to really reinvent yourself?
That was one of the big things that I say I am different or unique in is that financial piece. What I recognize is even going through the process, women have to think financially, not emotionally.
Mm,
And it takes somebody sometimes on the outside to be able to help with that. Do I get the marital home? Well, if I can't afford it, leave the emotions behind because it'll end up being in foreclosure and you won't have it again anyway. It's like because you're looking for something to hold on to. But being able to go back and say, let me just see what my budget's going to look like. What do I have? How much do I need to request? Recognizing that if I've been married more than 10 years, alimony is on the table. So
Right.
please, don't leave the home until you have to. They have to still continue to pay all the bills that they were doing. Those things that you don't know. So a lot of women just walk away and they
Yes.
put themselves in financial devastation. So I always say, nope, let's look at it. Let's make sure we're okay before you leave.
That's such a
So,
great point.
so once you do that, we talked about all of the paperwork. The other side is I've got to change that paperwork because if something happens to me on life insurance and things like that, you don't want him getting it.
Right.
Right? You would rather your children get it. Hey, you've got all of those changes to make. But then I say you've got to do the estate planning too on the other end, which is some of that paperwork. But how am I going to be set up for the long term? If you think about all of that up front before you make your request, you're in a better position. Child support and the requirements by, the different state laws and what they're requiring. Don't just settle for anything, but you've got to know the information. If you need a financial neutral, get one. If you've got businesses, get someone to appraise the business and then decide what is going to be best for you long term. Now, once you have your budget and you figure out what you have, what slice of the pie you have available, that's when you make a decision. What do I really want to do? What has God called me to do? How can I be divinely aligned with how He's created me? Again, go back, look at your strengths, your gifts, your talent, and then decide this is where I want to go. And so
Yes.
we're seeing a lot of gray divorces these days, any divorce over 25 years. It's sickening because when you get older, it's like we're supposed to be working with each other and helping each other with the health
Exactly.
challenges. And you're like, well, now who's going to help me? I might not look it, but I turned 62 this year.
No way.
Yes, way. I told you I was married for 30, I was together for 36 years. So, yes.
You look incredible.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But you got to know that that you've got to know that if you've been saving along the way, that you're going to be okay. You've got
Yeah.
to know what else you need to put in place. If you haven't, or if you have, but you're not at a point where you have everything in place to be able to live off of what's there. You've
Yeah.
got to have a plan. Yes, some of us go back to work. Some were stay-at-home moms and they didn't have an income. That's why you need to know what the alimony is, whether it's permanent, whether it's temporary. You need to know what that is and then make them stick to it. Like, come on, it's a legal document. Um, there are
Yeah.
charlatans out there all day, every day. So you have to be careful. I will just say be careful. But getting a budget together is what you can do yourself. You have control over it. I find many women were not taking, not really investing or taking part in the financial decisions. And now all of a sudden that's on your plate too. And it can be very overwhelming. But you don't want to give someone else the reins for your finances going forward. You want to take those and learn financial literacy. There's different courses, there's different books. I talk about that too, but I want to make sure that you've got at least a budget so you know what is coming in, what's going out. That's just the simple math of it. And then you put things in buckets. You say, this is what I'm going to spend, this is what I'm going to save, and this is what I'm going to give. And when you do that in those three simple buckets, you can say, all right, I'm good. Oh, I can't afford this. But I also say you don't completely deny yourself. I'm like Joyce Myers, eat the cookie by the shoes. You've got to be able to do something for yourself or you're going to be resentful. And I
Yes.
find that a lot of women will look back and say, he's living his best life and he's off with the other woman now. And, they're just put blinders on. Don't even look at them. Learn to confidently live life where you are the way you want.
Right, because it's not a comparison, right?
It's not.
We all have our own path, and that doesn't matter anymore.
No.
And the whole piece about the really financial education, really trying to figure out how to manage a budget. And you can create one that's so simple. Like you said, my former spouse controlled all the finances in our home. And I had shame about that for a long time to say, oh, I never asked, I never did anything. But you can start today.
Right.
And it's really simple to just highlight what are you bringing in to your, just exactly what you just said, and then what is going out. It's that simple. And being able to visualize that makes all the difference. It takes away that anxiety that is building up when you don't know. So you shared so many great things about that, because I think we don't we don't do that for ourselves. We don't look at it, and because usually it's not as big of a mountain as we create
Exactly.
in our mind. So again, that's why I think the mindfulness is really important too.
If someone is in the process and they haven't gotten there, I think this is very key for them. Ask those questions. If you're having trouble and you're starting to listen to this podcast and you're going, I'm going to be transitioning soon, and you're not already on that other side, then ask, hey, can I see the taxes? Let me pay attention to it. Let me
Mm,
just ask some of the questions. How are we spending? What else do we have? Because a lot of times they will hide assets too. You
yes.
need someone that is going to pay attention to that. You know,
Yes.
that's not your coach. That's a financial neutral, or, if you need a forensic accountant or something of that sort, go look, especially if they have businesses, go look at those things so that
Yeah.
you are not left out of it and that your kids are not left out either. That's
Y-
important.
Yeah. And you said don't move. And I love that you said that, because I think so many women immediately start to panic and start making moves before they have really educated themselves on
Exactly.
what the right thing for them is. And so you don't have to do anything. There's no race until there's like a sign on a dotted line. There's no race. And so it's, yes, you want to move forward, but at the same time, don't make decisions that you can't go back on.
Yep.
And that's where that, not moving is so important. And
Smart. Be smart about it.
yeah, just be smart about it. Look out for yourselves. And it's also not a time to be the nice guy, meaning, and I don't mean being nasty, I just mean you don't have to give, give, give. And as women, we do that a lot. So this is not a time to do that.
And that's part of that grieving process too, because when we talk about the 5 stages of grief, one of them is bargaining. And you start, hey, well, I'll give you this and maybe you'll change your mind and you don't have to do
Yes.
this. No. And so if you recognize it's part of the grieving process,
Yeah.
then you say, no. Again, you need that person to say, don't send that email. Don't make that statement. Back up on that. Ask your attorney something that is going to make a difference for you so that you don't find yourself in a bind going forward. But I'm here to say you definitely can achieve, you definitely can succeed, you can do the things, whatever was on your heart. We have to learn to dream again, you know?
Yes.
And that is, yeah, it might take some finances to go start a new job or to go do something different, but you've got to learn to dream again. Bury the old version of you that does not, it is not appropriate for now. Some of the things that you used to do, decide, I'm not doing that anymore. That was the old part of me that is no longer valid. Then you also have to then decide, hey, I'm going to bless some things that I need to reinvigorate, reignite, re-energize. I love to dance. I had stopped dancing. So let me go dance again.
Yes.
And then the third one of that is you bestow something on other people. What can you do to bring impact to the lives of others? And so when you do that, you've reinvented yourself. You feel better. You're dreaming. You're not playing small any longer. You're not letting someone else's opinion or what they decided to really run your life. Because there still is a
Yes.
great plan for you.
Yes, that's the rediscovery. That's the
Yeah.
reinventing. That's all of it. Exactly what you just said. And I know the audience is so inspired by so many things that you shared today, so many beautiful nuggets of wisdom. But I want to talk a little bit about, we said that you're a best-selling author. Can you
Okay.
tell us about that if the audience wants to find out more?
Oh, yes. Well, right now I have 7 books that are out there.
Wow.
4 of them happen to be on finance, so you can get it any way you need it. I've got one that is the do-it-yourself, financial wisdom for financial freedom. Got one that does the theology and theory side when I was teaching biblical finance. So that one's called Not Just Paper. And then there's 2 others. One is a devotional planner, and it's done in such a way that, bite-sized pieces. Hey, I don't want to just sit and go through, and a lot of people don't. So you get it from a devotional standpoint, and you say, all right, well, then I can move forward to this week. I'm only concentrating on this. So it's a 52-week um, devotional planning. And then the last one is, I call it Destined to Prosper. It's biblical financial personalities. So you figure out how you work with money so that you can remove the struggle from money management. But I think we all need that, because it
Oh,
talks about
yeah.
it individually, then as a couple, and then as an entrepreneur. So you figure out, well, what do I need to do differently? And it's a Bible study, but you're not going to find that one anywhere else. But there are 4 of them that way. But then I also have books one on prayer, part of the Divinely Connected series, and then one called Sister to Sister. That one was going through life's challenges like we're going through right now, but it's a devotional planner so that you can plan, here's what I'm going to do. But I get that
Wow.
devotion that helps build me up, because that's the thing that we need the most. I need to be rebuilt spiritually, emotionally, and financially. So all of those are together in that sister to sister. So, I mean,
That's
I,
all of it.
that's all
Spiritually, emotionally, financially.
you
Ladies,
got it.
that's it right there. Tie it up with a bow. And wow, I wish I had these resources when I was going through my divorce, because truly that's what we need is we need those resources
You need
to
them.
educate ourselves and then support us through this journey.
Exactly.
So tell me about how the audience can find you if they want to learn more about you, maybe work with you. How can they find you?
Well, I will definitely say the easiest way or the best way is to go to my website, and it's just simply ChontaHaynes.com. I got to spell it right though. ChontaHaynes.com. When you go there, you'll find either an assessment that you want to do. You can book a one-on-one call with me, or you can just simply say, hey, I want to find out how to prosper before, during, and after divorce. And I've got a webinar out there that you can watch. So connect with me. There's a lot of free resources that I have as well. But if you just go to my website, what it's going to mean for you is that you're going to start moving forward. That's the biggest thing. So whether you do anything with me or not, all of that information, that value is available. You can even get that, free download so that you can get your finances together and get that budget going too, because it's there as well. So there's so much that is out there, just depending on where you are in life. I just say, go to my website, peruse it, find out what is best for you at this juncture, and take advantage of what's there. I'd love to talk to your audience, because I want to see every woman absolutely succeed. I used to say that I felt like I was flying in the air without an airplane, but I say now my
Yeah,
plane is landed, and yours will too.
I
The sky's
love
the limit,
that.
and the benefits are out of this world. So do that.
And thank you for the work that you are doing. And you're right. If we can help one person,
Mhm.
that's success, and we want to keep passing that along. So thank you. And we talked earlier about taking one step. So
One step.
take one step. You can reach out to Shantae's website. There you go. One step every day. So thank you again for being here. I really enjoyed our discussion. And again, your words of wisdom are inspiring, and keep doing the work that you're doing, because
Well,
it's
I appreciate
definitely
that.
needed out there.
Thank you so much for what you do. I appreciate this opportunity, one, but the opportunity to share, and those people that you are assisting as well. It is an absolutely beautiful thing that we have an opportunity to do, that God uses us to say, hey, bless somebody else. Even in the midst of your mess, don't recognize that it's there for a purpose. Like you said, there's a lesson behind it. And for anybody who has just been touched to say, this was a blessing to me, I needed to hear that. That is the best thing that we can get out of this. You
That's
know,
right.
that is the joy that we have, the fulfillment that we get to say, I helped somebody else along the way because others are watching.
Yes, that is the gift right there. So, for those of you listening to, just as a reminder, I will be hosting a retreat on October 26th in Maine. More information to come that you can find on my website at FromMrsToMe.com. And if you're interested, as always, please join the community From Mrs. to Me, Rediscovering You After Divorce on Facebook. And as I always like to say to end the show, you can't pour from an empty cup. So keep doing that inner work, and I'll see you here next time.